just caring for creation is something we should and must all be doing anyway. I mean, the news stories keep on coming. The terrible weather events and the loss of communities emphasises the need for change. I mean, I'm sure you're very well aware. The Met Office says that it is almost certain that we will have our record temperature in the world before 2026. And there is a 50-50 chance of the 1.5 degree increase being reached even before then. So without being over dramatic, we are in crisis, as I'm sure you will know. In many ways, in London, we are still slightly insulated for the worst effects. But our brothers and sisters in other parts of the world are directly suffering from neglect of the planet caused by us and others as their villages and livelihoods are destroyed. In the run-up to the COP26 last year, I represented Bishop Rob, our local bishop, on an international bishops' conference on Zoom. There were breakout groups to discuss the specific effects of climate change and the local political realities. I was put in a group with Bishop Ignatius from Zimbabwe, Bishop Nathan from South Sudan, and the Reverend Rachel from Cape Town. And I have to say their message was absolutely shocking, talking to people who are really on the ground, because the climate effects, particularly in Africa, are really very real. Changes are widespread. There's drought, flooding, and mudslides. I mean, they told me that the current conditions, the Nile is in grave danger of drying up completely. The ice caps that feed the Nile are 90% gone already. And in Cape Town, the supply of mains water is just about being sustained, and they had to go to extreme rationing a couple of times last year. So there's a danger that Cape Town will have no running water. Areas will become uninhabitable and the complete animal populations will get lost. So they told me that the West, we need to accept our responsibility of the effects that are inescapable and shift our care, prayer and responsibility to a global perspective. One bishop said to me, rich countries like yours are protective. If floods come to London, you just shut the Thames barrier. And this was a man who many of his communities and churches have been washed away. I think it's a huge issue of basic justice, though, again, without being too Christian about it. What we're doing every day without thinking is just destroying other people's lives, and so much we need to do. Now, there was a strong call in the final sermon of the previous Bishop of London, Richard Shutt, at St Paul's Cathedral in 2017. It was sort of his closing message to us as he left, and it was quite a strong one. And if I may, I'll just give you the last bit of it in full. I can't do the Richard Chartres voice, though, sadly. Many people enjoy a standard of healthcare and material prosperity unparalleled in human history, and this is something to celebrate. The problem is that our project of growth without limit, with no end in view, beyond the accumulation of more and more things, this project is unsustainable. The Earth's resources are being used up, especially space and water. We are changing the climate by overvaluing material assets and undervaluing the gifts of life we receive from God and one another, in the beauty of nature, in friendships, in being good neighbours, and in family life. The foundations of our civilization depend on social, spiritual culture, which materialism can erode but not create. As he says, every day I meet people who feel obscurely cheated or left behind. Having the world cannot bring joy in life and the assurance of death that comes from being a partaker, as St. Peter says, of the divine life, a partner with the myriad life forms of the divine creation, in being in communion with other beings and liberated from the addictions and the egoism which inhibits our freedom to love without any distortion. So that's a powerful message, I think, that we should all take to heart and definitely all start to work together, with or without any organised faith or religion. Net zero has to be a huge aspiration because given particularly the challenges we have with our church buildings. Our church has a Victorian heating system. It's very tall, it's very big, it costs an absolute fortune to heat. So one could argue we couldn't go net zero by just turning the heat off, which would be a rather violent way of doing it, but it would solve the energy use. But it doesn't, then people would stop coming. So there is a huge sort of dilemma. Now, it's easier to do with vicarages and smaller buildings. There is a big drive to go for heat pumps whenever possible. There's a big drive to increase insulation in smaller buildings. But we are just going to have to accept the fact that there will be some things that we will really struggle with, and that is the big buildings. That is, it's just the nature of the beast, which is why we're pushing on with doing everything we can to do all the other obvious sort of, for want of a better word, hygiene factors. So we're doing as much recycling, we're being very careful with suppliers. And that's before you start increasing the diversity. So it's, the net zero is sort of running on from EcoChurch. And it's the task force is just sort of starting to get going. And in fact, I had my first email about it last week, sort of to see what we can genuinely practically do, because you cannot get heat pumps big enough for churches that are leaky. It's just not possible. So I think we are being realistic. Everybody is looking huge amounts of work at the big boilers and the wiring and all the sort of fundamental insulation, but there is no argument to get big churches carbon neutral by 2030 is a real challenge. It's from a sort of a campaigning point of view, I think all we can do is just point out to them that the church that they profess to be a member of has signed up to safeguard the integrity of creation and sustain and renew the life of the earth as one of the central tenets of our faith. But, you know, having been on the sharp end, saying to people, you know, could you all start buying hybrid cars, please, and stop and eat less meat and walk to church? You know, we've installed cycle racks, but I've never seen anybody use them. You know, it's a complicated, it's at the macro level and the micro level, but I think it's, yes, it is a fact that if you profess to be a Christian, it comes with it. Yes, you do. And it's just basically very wrong. And, you know, I point out the message whenever I possibly can. We write about it, we talk about it. I've always expressed their religion in their own way, not necessarily following everything exactly as they should. But I agree, there are some high profile people who probably should know better, yes. We are only relatively recently within the Church of England, actually. You know, I mean, I issued for the first time last year a pack to each church, you know, giving them the idea. It was the Edmonton Area Creation Care Plan. They all got sent one, and that was the first time we did it last year. So it is actually trying to get the churches organized. But I mean, there are some exceptionally good books out there from a Christian perspective, which aren't too specifically Church of England. I mean, the leader of it was a guy called Dave Bookless, who was from Ealing, and he went on to be one of the founders of A. Rocha, and he wrote a really good book called Planet Wise, called Dare to Care for God's World. And then there was another one by a local author about saying yes to life. And they have been very, very instrumental, particularly Dave Bookless, in getting individuals within churches to sort of read up and do that link from the Bible through to the reality that we're living in. And that was, I mean, I picked it up from books, and many people I know have picked it up through books. So the information is out there, but you do, yes, Dave Bookless, that's it. In the end, it is all about individuals. You cannot go and sort of a megaphone to a church building. You just need some people within each community or in each congregation to kind of get the message and start to spread the word. And which is why, you know, as I said in my little chat, we have 114 churches in the Edmonton area, and I've only got so far 30 something actually signed up for the scheme at all, and only 14 bronze and 16 8 bronze and 2 silvers. So there's a long way to go, even though the message is starting to spread. Certainly, both within the 5 marks of mission and as part of the EcoChurch scheme, we are all exhorted to go out and get involved in local campaigning, local groups, and so I would say either do it it's probably best to go through your local church, wherever your campaign is based, wherever the particular thing is happening is to go through the local church, because the parish system is quite tight. You know, we as individual vicars, we have our own patch that we look after, and we do, obviously, but for a big event like this, we would spread across. So I know a number of friends that go up and campaign in London on a regular basis. So I think there's no question that the churches, particularly those that are interested in eco at this stage, would very much get involved in any way that we could help, and either by sort of using our church lands for sort of events, or individuals coming to support, you know, and stand up in the street and make a fuss.